Did you know that when Neiman Marcus opened its doors in 1907, only one founder was there to greet customers? Carrie Marcus Neiman. She was home recovering from surgery. Her brother Herbert was battling typhoid fever. So on opening day, it was A.L. Neiman, Al, welcoming Dallas into a brand new world of fashion. And more than a century later, I found myself walking into their store on a scorching hot August day. But the moment I stepped inside, I wasn't just in a store, I was inside a living piece of history. And that's why today, I am so excited. We are stepping back into that story. From the fire that almost ended the dream to the rebuild that made it iconic, to the designers and cultural moments it helped create. To understand how a tiny 50-foot storefront in Dallas reshaped fashion around the world. Welcome to Sorry It's Discontinued, the podcast that brings you the reality of retail, real stories, and the real people behind the counter. I'm Hillary, a former luxury beauty manager, sharing the heart and history behind the stores, products, and brands we love. And today, we are exploring how one small specialty shop turned Dallas into a fashion destination, and it changed American luxury forever. Sorry. It's discontinued. Hi, you guys. I am so excited to get into this episode. I can't wait to start talking about this story. But before we talk about the fire, the rebuild, or the designers who later shaped the store, we have to begin with the person whose eye set Neiman Marcus apart from the very beginning, Carrie Marcus Neiman. So fascinating. She was only 24 years old when Neiman Marcus opened in 1907. She was young, thoughtful, naturally reserved, yet already had experience in retail and buying, especially in Dallas. Now, before joining the new venture, Carrie worked at A. Harris & Company, a well-known Dallas department store. She served as the blouse buyer and quickly became the top saleswoman in her department. She was known actually for being kind, gentle. She was patient, very observant, and exceptionally detail-minded. Carrie wasn't the type to push a sale. She listened, she watched, and she understood proportion, fit, color, and what made a garment flattering for different women. And at a time when ready-to-wear was still a new concept, especially in Texas, Carrie helped introduce Dallas women to the idea of walking into a store and finding beautiful, high-quality garments ready to buy without traveling to New York or Paris or going to a personal dressmaker. She was very innovative. And even though she was home recovering from surgery on opening day, her influence was everywhere in that first 50-foot storefront. The assortment, the standards, and the early identity of Neiman Marcus, it all reflected her choices and her taste. Carrie didn't simply assist with the store. She really helped shape its foundation. She was quietly confident. So her approach, it became a defining element of Neiman Marcus for decades to come. If Carrie shaped the taste of Neiman Marcus, her brother Herbert shaped its principles. Herbert believed that long-term customer relationships mattered more than short-term profits. How innovative. His philosophy, it became the store's backbone. There is never a good sale for Neiman Marcus unless it's a good buy for the customer. That's incredible. He was quoted as saying that. And to Herbert, retail was built on trust. You treated customers fairly. You cared about their experience, even when it cost you money. One early lesson he taught Stanley Marcus, his son, became legendary. A customer returned a delicate handmade lace gown that had been damaged after one wearing. Stanley resisted replacing it. Herbert explained, "This is her first fine garment. Teach her and replace it. She's not doing business with the manufacturer. She's doing business with us." And that customer later spent more than $500,000 with the store. Herbert gave Neiman Marcus its ethical grounding and its reputation for exceptional service. Service based not on selling merchandise, but on creating loyal relationships. And he taught Stanley a lesson he would never forget, and he carried it with him. One of the biggest retail lessons of his life. A.L. Neiman, Carrie's husband. He brought the drive that helped launch the store. He was energetic, social, and determined. The kind of person who kept momentum going even when circumstances were difficult. Before opening Neiman Marcus, Al, Carrie, and Herbert made a decision that would become part of the store's origin story. They turned down the opportunity to invest in Coca-Cola in order to open their own specialty store. It was a bold decision, choosing retail over what would become one of the world's most iconic brands. But it shows just how committed they were to building something of their own. And when the store opened in 1907, that commitment was put to the test. Carrie was recovering from surgery she had just had 2 weeks earlier. And Herbert, he was fighting typhoid fever, a very severe case. So on opening day, it was Al who stood inside the first 50-foot storefront, greeting customers on behalf of all three founders. And now Al's drive and optimism is what really helped fuel the early years of the business, and it gave Neiman Marcus what it needed to grow. Before Neiman Marcus opened in 1907, you have to imagine Dallas in the South. It wasn't a fashion city. Department stores mostly carried fabrics and basic garments, but not fine clothing, ready to wear. For women who wanted something beautiful or well-made, the options, they were limited. If you had the money, you would travel to New York or Paris or hire a local dressmaker, or you could order through catalogs and hope for the best. But ready-to-wear simply was not a mainstream idea in the South. That is where Carrie Marcus Neiman saw what others didn't. Through her experience, she knew what Dallas women wanted. They wanted better quality, better fit, elegant clothing they didn't have to travel far for. She recognized the gap and she understood this was a big opportunity, especially with her experience working in other department stores. So when Neiman Marcus opened, Carrie wasn't just selecting garments. She was helping introduce a new modern way to shop. Fine, ready-to-wear, available the same day clothes. And she was just 24. She helped shift Dallas from dressmakers and catalogs into the beginning of ready-made fashion. So Neiman Marcus didn't just open a store, it opened the door to a new era of dressing, with Carrie really kind of at the center of the stage. Now, ready to wear, this is kind of embarrassing, but I never thought about it. I didn't realize that ready to wear was really what it says, ready to wear. You grab it, it fits, you put it on, you take it home. People didn't do that then. And I never thought about the concept. It's very literal. Did you guys know where ready to wear came from? Ready to wear department? I had no idea. So that kind of blew me away. Kind of fun stuff. I love fun facts. Now, when Neiman Marcus finally opened its doors, the reaction, it was immediate. Dallas women, they walked in. They found selections of beautiful, ready-to-made garments, something the city had never seen. Styles inspired by the East Coast and Paris, clothing you could touch and try on, and you could take it home that day. It was a completely different experience. And it hadn't been done in retail, especially for women, especially in Dallas. So the response was so strong that inventory it sold out within weeks. For the first time, Dallas had access to modern fashion without boarding a train or relying on a dressmaker. So Neiman Marcus didn't just open a door in 1907, it opened up new possibilities. And for 5.5 years, that little 50-foot storefront, it had become a trusted destination. But then in 1913, everything changed. Sadly, on Sunday morning, May 11th, 1913, a fire broke out inside the original Neiman Marcus store. By the time the fire was contained, the entire interior of the building, it had been destroyed. Merchandise, fixtures, equipment, records, it was all lost. And at that point, the store had been open for 5.5 years. But for any young business, a loss of this scale, it could have been devastating. But instead, the Marcus family approached the situation with clarity and resolve. Standing outside the damaged building, the next morning, Herbert Marcus made the decision that the store would be rebuilt without delay. There was no pause in moving forward. They had to rebuild, reopen, and continue serving the customers who had supported them since they first opened. The fire marked a significant setback, but it did not stop the growth of the business. Instead, it became the transition point that led to the creation of the new Neiman Marcus building that I stepped into this summer. The fire, it did not end the story of Neiman Marcus. It became the turning point that led to the store's next chapter, which is so fascinating. 3 incredible people. Look at what they did. So after the fire, the Marcus family, they moved quickly. Plans for a new building began almost immediately. And less than a year later, in 1914, Neiman Marcus reopened in a newly constructed store at Main and Hervé, the same corner that remains its flagship today. The new building was larger, it was sturdier, and designed with the ambition of a store that intended to grow with the city. Over the years, it's expanded into a 9-story landmark with more than 129,000 square feet of retail space. What a difference from a 50-foot storefront. Each addition reflected the same guiding idea: bring the best of fashion, craftsmanship, and design to Dallas. As the store evolved, so did its architecture. While some stories about imported marble and fixtures arriving by horse-drawn wagons are part of store lore, I couldn't really confirm that, but one thing is clear. The Marcus family was very intentional about creating a shopping environment that felt elevated and distinctive. In the late 1920s, Stanley Marcus, he was still early in his career, he traveled with his father, Herbert, and their architect to cities like St. Louis, Chicago, Minneapolis, Cleveland, Ohio, to study emerging specialty store designs. So Herbert, his dad, favored more traditional Italian Renaissance influences, which you really see when you're walking in, especially in the first floor. And Stanley, he was drawn to the modern ideas he had seen in Paris, especially during the 1925 Exposition of Decorative Arts. Now, the result became a thoughtful blend of styles throughout the store. So imagine Italian Renaissance, French Provincial, English Tudor. Oh, I love English Tudor. Different departments were designed with different architectural themes, giving each area its own character and making the store feel unique compared to other retailers of the time. This approach reflected the family's belief that fashion and environment should work together, that the experience of shopping was just as important as the clothing itself, which makes so much sense because when you're walking around, you just want to buy things. Everything looks so pretty. Of course, depending budget friendly. I did buy a little tiny wallet that day, and I love it and I cherish it. It's just inspiring when you're in that kind of an environment and everything's so beautiful. As Dallas expanded, so did Neiman Marcus. New floors, new departments, new architectural additions. They were added over the decades, and each layer contributing to the store's identity as the city's fashion anchor. I love that. Now, by the mid-20th century, the flagship, it wasn't just a retail space anymore. This became a Dallas landmark, recognized for its design, its service, and its cultural influence. So as the store continued to grow through the 1920s and the 30s, the foundation that was laid by Carrie, Herbert, and Al remained firmly in place. But the next major shift in the store's evolution, it happened because of Stanley, someone who had grown up watching the business from the inside and was ready to shape and change its future. By the time Stanley Marcus joined the business, Neiman Marcus had already survived a fire, rebuilt itself, and earned a reputation for quality and service. But Stanley, he took the store into an entirely new era, one defined by innovation and global fashion influence. It was incredible what he did. He grew up around the store and in the store. He watched his Aunt Carrie select garments. He saw his father, Herbert, navigate customer relationships. He absorbed everything and observed the importance of service, integrity, presentation from an early age. Those lessons shaped his thinking long before he held a role in the business. He believed that Neiman Marcus should be more than a place to shop. He saw it as a platform, a way to introduce Dallas to the best of fashion, art, and ideas from around the world. He had such a strong sense for emerging designers, international trends, the importance of visual presentation, and the role fashion plays in cultural life. These instincts set him apart from other American retailers of his time. He became known for identifying talented designers early, often before they became household names. And through his leadership, Neiman Marcus introduced Dallas customers to some of the most influential designers of the 20th century, including, now bear with me because this list is long, how incredibly awesome was he? Of course, Coco Chanel, Christian Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, Balenciaga, Oscar de la Renta, Ralph Lauren, Giorgio Armani, Givenchy, Halston, Carolina Herrera, Missoni, Pucci, Ungaro, Donna Karan. His support wasn't just transactional. He believed in their work and presented it with respect and intention. Neiman Marcus became one of the first American retailers to treat fashion as an art form. Stanley's ability to attract global figures, it helped establish Neiman Marcus as a cultural destination. So under his leadership, the store welcomed, bear with me, long list, Grace Kelly, Sophia Loren, Lauren Bacall, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Diana Vreeland, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, Andy Warhol, I mean, come on now, Eleanor Roosevelt, Betty Davis, These visits weren't publicity stunts either. They were part of Stanley's belief that Dallas deserved access to the same cultural experiences as New York or Paris. Just fucking awesome. Now, the Neiman Marcus Award, one of Stanley's major contributions, was an award for distinguished service in the field of fashion. Introduced in 1938, this award recognized outstanding fashion talent and helped strengthen the store's global reputation. Now, early honorees included influential designers and big fashion leaders who shaped the direction of American style at the time. And under Stanley's guidance, it held runway shows, exhibitions, art, fine dining, and special events. It became a part of the store's brand identity. He integrated education, entertainment, and luxury into the shopping experience long before it became a standard in modern retail. He didn't just run Neiman Marcus. He helped define American luxury retail, which I feel like we're losing right now. Let's go back in time. Let's go back there. By the early 1950s, Neiman Marcus had already built a national reputation for introducing Americans to important designers. So, in 1957, when the store selected Coco Chanel as the recipient of the Neiman Marcus Award for Distinguished Service in the Field of Fashion, it became one of the most significant cultural moments in Dallas retail history. Stanley Marcus held Chanel in high regard, both for her innovation and for the consistency of her visions. He later explained what made her so influential. Chanel never copied anyone. She only copied herself, Stanley Marcus. To him, this meant she created a signature style so strong that she didn't need to chase trends. Her work had clarity, longevity, identity, qualities that matched the values of Neiman Marcus. And when Chanel traveled to Dallas to accept the award, I mean, could you die? The city welcomed her with enormous enthusiasm. And Stanley believed Dallas deserved the same access to major fashion moments as Paris or New York. And Chanel's visit proved that belief was justified. So cool. She was struck by Texas. The confidence, the independence, the open landscape, and the unmistakable Western character, of course. And shortly after her visit, Chanel debuted designs that incorporated Western-influenced elements like fringe and suede and leather, bold accessories, and freer silhouettes. Now, these pieces reflected what she had observed in Texas, interpreted through her Parisian sensibility. Now, Karl Lagerfeld later revived these Western themes many times throughout his tenure at Chanel, weaving them into accessories, jackets, skirts, and runway presentations. And designers worldwide echoed these motifs as well. The roots lead back to that one moment, Chanel's trip to Dallas, invited and hosted by Neiman Marcus. Now, her visit, it wasn't just simply glamorous, but it shows the determination and the reach that this store had achieved, starting back to the beginning when these three founders had this great idea. Coco Chanel's visit to Dallas, it marked an important point in Neiman Marcus history. I know when I was walking through the store, I kept like imagining, oh, Chanel walked through here. She might have touched this wall. Maybe she rode in this elevator or on this escalator. Anyway, it's It's so fun to think like that and to go back in time, those moments. Anyway, a moment when the store's influence, it reached beyond Dallas, beyond Texas, and it became a part of the larger fashion conversation. Her recognition of the Neiman Marcus Award, it helped reinforce the store's growing reputation as a place that valued global talent. And from the 40s through the 80s, Neiman Marcus entered what many consider its most recognizable era. And the store hosted couture presentations, seasonal trunk shows, society events that drew customers from across the region and even all over the world, tailoring suits and providing fit and service and exclusive collections. So the store's focus on quality and craftsmanship was number one, but number one to number one, always customer service. That shaped everything, shaped by Herbert's philosophy and Carrie's understanding of women's needs. It was always central to the store's reputation. So for many Texans, Neiman Marcus became more than a shopping destination. It really became part of major life moments, first suits, special occasion, dresses, bridal wardrobes, celebrations, and gifts. Saying, I got it at Neiman's, it carried an association with reliability, quality, and a sense of pride in your purchase. Now, retail, it has changed significantly in recent decades. I talk about it a lot. I know you guys feel it. And online shopping, new buying habits, everything's shifting and shifting the roles of department stores. It's affecting retailers across the country, including Neiman Marcus. But despite these changes, the downtown Dallas flagship store, it continues to maintain much of what defined it historically. Its focus on presentation and attention to detail and its commitment to customer service. You can still feel the legacy of Neiman Marcus and the people who work there today. Their hospitality, product knowledge, attention to detail, it's all reflected through the associates that are still there and upholding all of this through generations, these long-standing traditions. And it keeps the Dallas flagship store connected to its amazing history. It really has an incredible history. And I've only just touched on the highlights, just some of them. Neiman Marcus, it didn't just change Dallas. It helped shape American fashion. It brought Chanel to Texas. It introduced generations to designers who became legends. And it proved that a store in Dallas could influence the fashion world just as much as one in New York or Paris. And today, as conversations continue about the future of the downtown Dallas flagship, one thing feels especially important to say. If any store deserves support, recognition, and appreciation, it is the Neiman Marcus Downtown Dallas. The uncertainty surrounding the building only reminds all of us how meaningful it is and how important the history is, how many lives and careers have passed through those doors, and how deeply the store's associates, they care about preserving its standard of service. I experienced it when I went there in August. I was so thankful. The associates took their time answering questions while I was being very store gazy, asking silly questions and touching the walls and wanting to ride all the elevators. Not that I did that, but I wanted to. Going up the escalator and down the escalator, up again. It was so fun just being there. And every associate took their time and were so kind and generous with their time. So if you ever get the chance to visit the flagship, please do. Walk the floors, talk and shop with the people who work there. Let them know that their knowledge, their kindness, and dedication, it matters. It really does. And if you can't make it in person, read the Stanley Marcus Minding the Store book. It is so good. He was a great writer and just very intentional, and you could tell his words just very meaningful, not pompous or arrogant, just like a genuinely nice guy. So it brings legacy and decisions and philosophy behind the Neiman Marcus story to life as you're reading this book. And you can understand why this store means so much to so many. It's not just a store. It is a landmark. It is a piece of fashion history. I hope it doesn't go anywhere. All right. Well, I appreciate you and thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I thank you, my retail lovers out there, for listening today. And I'm sending you big hugs, and I can't wait to have a seat with you next week. Now, starting this coming Monday, I'm adding a fun mini episode every week, along with my weekly Thursday episodes. Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm going to try it out. Just little Monday minis. So I'll see you next week, my friends. I hope you have a fabulous one, and happy December to you and your retail journey. Love you. Bye. Thanks for listening to Sorry It's Discontinued, where we honor the voices, stories of those who've lived life behind the counter in retail. If you've loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a fellow retail warrior. You can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/sorrypodcast, or you can leave me a message. It's sorryitsdiscontinued.com if there's anything you want me to talk about, or even be a guest on the show. Now, the views, opinions, and personal experiences shared on this podcast are my own and those of my guests. They do not reflect the views of any current or former employers, brands, or companies that may be mentioned. All stories are shared with care, honesty, and respect. Now, thank you for sitting with me today. I'm sending you lots of love, retail crew. Kindness is contagious. So spread your beautiful smiles, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Sorry. It's discontinued.